There is a silence beneath your desire, a silence you've often felt but rarely met. It's not empty, it's waiting. Waiting for you to recognize it, waiting for you to hear what it whispers beneath the noise of longing, the ache of wanting, the distraction of seeking something outside of yourself. Your mind, your powerful, sacred mind, was born clear, like a crystal lake reflecting the sky, pure, undisturbed, endless in possibility. Yet somewhere along the journey, something changed. Something shifted. Desire crept in silently. Not the desire that lifts your spirit, but the one that pulls at your peace, distorting your clarity, clouding your vision. You felt it, haven't you? It's subtle, yet unmistakable. The restless energy that pulls you away from your center, making you seek what doesn't fulfill, crave what doesn't nourish, chase what never stays. And with each chase, each moment spent in the emptiness that promises fullness, your sacred energy leaks, your power fades, your magnetism dims. But what if this restless energy, this yearning, isn't here to torment you? What if hidden within the same desire lies your deepest power, your truest clarity, your greatest strength? Breathe softly now. Place your hand gently over your heart. Feel the rhythm, feel the knowing, feel the silent pulse beneath your skin. As you breathe, imagine a golden thread running through you, connecting mind, heart, and soul. Whisper gently to yourself, as if your soul has been waiting to hear it forever. My desire is not my enemy, it's the path back home. Because what you're about to discover isn't denial, it's freedom. Your de-sexualized mind is your greatest weapon, and then something inside remembers how to obey. But what rises after the silence is never just sound, it is memory. There is a flicker behind the eyes, a heat in the chest, a current that never fully rests. Desire, not the kind that builds, the kind that lingers, that hides beneath your laughter, behind your scrolling, between your breath and your unspoken ache. There is a thread without hands, a door that does not open, a breath that carries a name you forgot. It moves in images, it hides in dreams, and often it looks like love, but it tastes like absence. This is the law of misdirected frequency. Desire in its purest state is divine. It is creative, potent, magnetic, but when twisted by guilt, suppressed by shame, or chased like an escape, it changes form. It becomes smoke instead of flame, noise instead of music. You feel it when the body tightens for something it can't quite name. You feel it when the nights are full of distraction but empty of intimacy. You feel it when fantasy becomes a coping mechanism, not a sacred vision. And the body, so intelligent, so ancient, begins to adapt. It lowers its vibration. It adjusts its frequency to match the chaos within. Desire then becomes an anchor, not to presence, but to absence. It anchors you in loops of not yet, not enough, not whole. It binds you invisibly to thoughts that do not nourish and to images that do not see you. And you begin to forget your softness, forget your sovereignty, forget that you were never meant to crave what steals your power. This isn't just emotional, it's vibrational. Every thought you feed, every feeling you rehearse, every fantasy you entertain either expands or drains your field. And when your field is drained, manifestation becomes foggy. Your clarity dims, your soul feels tired, but what echoes back is not always what you spoke. And when the thread tightens, the field begins to listen. There is a rhythm in the mind, not of thought, but of chemistry, like a tide that comes not from the ocean, but from inside the skull, quiet, electric, addictive. It is the rhythm of dopamine, a molecule of wanting, of seeking, of never arriving. There is a screen in front of you, but the real capture is behind your eyes. Each image that pulses, each scroll that slides, each click that excites, it's not just entertainment, it's entrainment. Your brain learns to crave the chase, not the arrival. It learns to mistake stimulation for satisfaction. This is the loop. Dopamine surges, you feel a high, a flicker of relief, then it drops, and with the drop comes the hunger. not for meaning, but for more. And so it continues, image, app, fantasy, craving, not because you're weak, but because your nervous system has been taught to find safety in the predictable rhythm of distraction. Even if that rhythm is draining you, you begin to feel it in your body, the difficulty focusing, the disconnection from stillness, the jitter behind your thoughts, the noise behind your breathing. The body no longer vibrates with coherence. It fragments, it flickers. The electromagnetic field, the sacred interface between thought and form, begins to weaken. And when the field weakens, what you call into your life becomes misaligned. What was meant to magnetize becomes a slow leak. What was meant to nourish becomes a hunger that never ends. You don't lose your power, but it gets scattered across 1,000 clicks, 1,000 glances, 1,000 unmet longings. And then something inside remembers how to obey. But what echoes beneath craving is not always hunger. Sometimes it's loneliness in disguise. There is a fire that warms, and there's a fire that consumes. One invites presence, the other demands escape. There is a door that opens through the body sensual, sacred, alive, but when the soul is not invited, that door becomes a trap, a mirror that shows you everything except your reflection. Some truths do not begin, they resurface. Like this one, pleasure is not always connection, and connection is not always felt in the body first. Sometimes the ache you call desire is just the echo of a silence you've been avoiding. You think you're seeking intimacy, but often you're just avoiding the stillness that whispers too loudly. The stillness that shows you where it hurts, where it's empty, where it longs, so you reach for a body, for a screen, for a story. And in that reaching, you mistake friction for depth, release for communion, closeness for coherence. But here's the wound. When the body becomes the only path to connection, the soul is left standing outside the door. The nervous system learns that climax equals closeness. But your heart knows better. Your heart never wanted fireworks. It wanted presence. It wanted to be held in breath, not just in skin. You feel it in the aftermath. That moment right after pleasure fades, when silence returns and feels heavier than before. It's not guilt. It's the grief of unmet connection, the ache of sacredness that wasn't invited in. And when you feel that, your body begins to wake up from the spell, and then something inside remembers how to obey. But what remains after the fire is not ash, it's essence. There is a pulse beneath the craving, not erratic, not hungry, steady, ancient, gold. It lives in the same place as your longing, but it speaks a different language. It doesn't beg, it builds. There is a well that never dries, a current that does not burn, it blesses. And when desire is not chased, but honored, it changes. It stops being noise, it becomes code, encoded power, waiting to be unlocked. This is the seed of transmutation, the hidden alchemy of sexual energy, when no longer exiled to instinct and no longer hijacked by shame. This energy was never meant to be silenced. It was meant to be shaped. It is not the enemy of your awakening. It is the fuel. When you feel the spark rising, pause, not to suppress, but to redirect, to lift it from the root to the crown, from the ache to the vision, from the hunger to the heart. Neville called it imaginative discipline, the practice of holding a vision so clearly, so reverently, that it becomes more magnetic than any fleeting impulse. Inhale. Imagine the desire rising through your spine, your breath, your bloodstream, not to escape, but to illuminate, not to indulge, but to inspire. Breathe as if the breath itself is remembering you. And instead of spilling outward, that sacred energy turns inward and becomes focus, becomes magnetism, becomes creation. This is not a denial of the body, it is its reverence. This is not about purity, it's about power. The kind of power that doesn't shout, it glows, and then something inside remembers how to obey. And when the current softens, the vessel begins to clear. There is a lake within you, still, deep, quiet. When agitated, its surface distorts the sky. But when calm, it reflects heaven itself. This is your mind, unclouded by grasping. This is your energy, undistracted by the noise of chasing. This is what becomes possible when desire is no longer your master, but your servant. A desexualized mind is not a barren mind. It is a fertile one, not dry but distilled, not empty but available, available to intuition, available to the divine, available to the frequency of creation itself. Desire that once agitated the waters now becomes the wind that moves them with grace, no longer a storm, but a current of clarity. You begin to see what was always there, not through fantasy, but through presence, not through wanting, but through knowing. The noise quiets, the static clears, and in its place, a silence that listens, a field that amplifies, a body that begins to trust again. Your electromagnetic field begins to realign not around lack, but around coherence. You become a mirror for the sacred, not because you forced yourself into stillness, but because you released what distorted the signal. This is what the soul had always been asking for. Not abstinence, but access to you. To the you that is not ruled by reaction. To the you that remembers she is a vessel, not a vacuum. And then something inside remembers how to obey. But not all silence is stillness. Some silence is transformation in disguise. There is a canvas inside you. At first, it appears blank. But with each withheld impulse, each redirected breath, a new color emerges. Not from outside, but from memory. From the ancient code within the body that remembers how to create, not just consume. There is a man, an artist, who once believed his passion came only through chaos. He lived in the cycle, the chase, the thrill, the aftermath, until one night, the pleasure no longer filled him, it fractured him. And in that fracture, he didn't run. He stayed, he breathed, he listened, and from that listening came stillness. And from that stillness came art, a painting born not from hunger but from harmony, a work so full of soul it needed no explanation. This is not rare, it's a pattern. When energy is reclaimed, realigned, revered, something awakens, synchronicities arrive, clarity sharpens, truth begins to orbit you, and the body so often trapped in the loop of want, regret, want finally exhales. It stands upright, it opens, it regenerates. You begin to glow not because you're avoiding desire, but because you're alchemizing it. There is a vitality that returns when you stop leaking life force into fragments. You feel it in your skin, your spine, your voice. You don't just walk into rooms differently, you shift the room itself. And then something inside remembers how to obey. But what the body forgets through repetition, it remembers through reverence. There is a pathway within you, unwalked, unburned, unbroken. It leads not downward, but inward. Not toward reaction, but toward recognition. It is the path of sacred pleasure, the kind that does not collapse you, but consecrates you. There is a touch that isn't about stimulation, it's about remembrance. Of the way the breath feels when it is not rushed. Of the way the skin receives without needing. Of the way your heart listens. Some pleasures were never meant to climax. They were meant to expand. Like sunlight through a stained glass window. Soft, multicolored, holy. This is not about abstinence. It's about refinement. Pleasure that doesn't end in release, but in revelation. Pleasure that starts in the body, but opens in the soul. Gratitude becomes arousal. Presence becomes ecstasy. Stillness becomes the most erotic thing you've ever known. Your nervous system begins to rewire not to quick reward, but to deep coherence. New neural pathways begin to form. Pathways of slowness, of depth, of devotion. And the impulse, once reactive, impulsive, burning, now becomes the flame you offer to the altar of your own becoming. Breathe as if the air itself was praising you. Pleasure rises, yes, but not to escape, to anoint, to awaken, to align. This is the new circuitry, not pleasure as consumption, but pleasure as communion. and then something inside remembers how to obey. And when all flames rest, what remains is the original light. There is a silence that does not beg to be filled. It fills you, not with words, not with wanting, but with presence. With a remembering that feels less like discovery and more like return. This is the gift of the de-sexualized mind, not numb, not cold, but clear, strong, centered. A mind that no longer orbits desire is a mind available to the source. It is not distracted, it is devotional. It is not dry, it is distilled. Bruce Lipton reminds us, the inner environment shapes your biology. When your desires remain unconscious, they script your chemistry. They form hormones of need. They carve grooves of restlessness, but when your field is clear, your body listens differently. It regenerates, it synchronizes, it obeys. And Gregg Braden speaks of coherence, that sacred moment when the heart and the mind cease to argue, when instinct bows to awareness, when sensation becomes song. This is the truth beneath all chasing, that you were never meant to be pulled by desire. You were meant to radiate from presence. There is a question now floating gently above your field, not demanding, just waiting. Soft as a breath behind your ear, what does your energy crave when the mind is free? Because you didn't just listen, you remembered. The weapon is not suppression. The weapon is transmutation. It is sealed. It is done.